this episode, we bring identity and access management together by focusing on validation, because designing authorization models and provisioning accounts correctly is only half the battle if you never verify that the controls still work as intended. Access control effectiveness is not proven by policy documents or by initial setup. It is proven through ongoing review, structured testing, and disciplined corrective action when weaknesses appear. Over time, organizations change, roles shift, systems are added, and exceptions accumulate, and without validation, even well-designed access models drift away from their original intent. Validation is how you turn access control from a theoretical framework into a defensible, measurable control system. By the end of this discussion, you should understand how access reviews, control testing, and corrective workflows combine to sustain real access discipline rather than assumed compliance. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. Effective reviews depend on clarity and usability, because reviewers must understand what they are approving or rejecting. If review reports are confusing, overly technical, or lack context about what permissions actually enable, reviewers may approve access by default rather than evaluate it critically. Strong review processes present access in a meaningful way, linking permissions to roles, responsibilities, and risk levels. They also define how frequently reviews occur based on sensitivity and impact rather than using the same schedule for all systems. On the exam, mature review processes are typically risk-based, documented, and supported by clear evidence trails. Testing access controls goes beyond review and examines whether technical enforcement mechanisms behave as expected under controlled conditions. Testing may involve verifying that least privilege rules are enforced, confirming that separation of duties restrictions prevent conflicting actions, or simulating attempts to access restricted systems. Testing ensures that configuration settings, group memberships, and policy rules are functioning correctly rather than merely existing. Without testing, controls may appear strong on paper, but fail under real conditions due to misconfiguration or oversight. On the exam, questions about validating enforcement often reward answers that include controlled testing rather than reliance on policy statements alone. Corrective action is what transforms review findings and test results into improved security posture. When reviews identify excessive permissions or testing reveals gaps, the organization must remove or adjust access in a timely and documented way. Corrective action should include not only fixing the individual issue, but analyzing why it occurred. If privilege creep is common, the provisioning or role definition process may need adjustment. If testing repeatedly reveals configuration errors, automation or training may need improvement. On the exam, mature answers typically incorporate root cause analysis and systemic improvement rather than simple patchwork corrections. Evidence once again plays a central role in validation, because governance requires proof that reviews occurred, that testing was conducted, and that corrective actions were implemented. Evidence may include review attestations, change records, remediation tickets, and compliance dashboards. This documentation supports audit readiness and demonstrates accountability to leadership and regulators. The absence of evidence often indicates that controls are informal rather than structured. On the exam, when asked how to demonstrate access control effectiveness, answers that emphasize documented validation cycles generally align with the CIS controls philosophy. Metrics strengthen validation by revealing trends and helping governance prioritize attention. Organizations may measure the number of excessive permissions removed during reviews, the percentage of accounts reviewed on schedule, or the average time required to remediate identified issues. These metrics transform validation from an occasional event into an ongoing management discipline. They also help leadership understand whether access risk is increasing or decreasing over time. On the exam, strong governance responses often include measurable performance indicators tied to validation activities. Segmentation between routine access review and high-risk access review is another maturity indicator. Privileged accounts, access to sensitive data, and roles with financial authority typically warrant more frequent and detailed validation than low-impact systems. Treating all access equally can dilute focus and overwhelm reviewers, reducing effectiveness. Risk-based prioritization ensures that the most impactful access is scrutinized more closely. On the exam, proportional validation often distinguishes stronger answers from weaker ones. Automation can support validation without replacing human judgment. Automated tools can flag anomalies, identify unused privileges, and generate review reports efficiently. However, final approval decisions still require contextual understanding. Automation increases scalability and consistency, but governance ensures meaningful interpretation. On the exam, balanced answers that integrate automation with oversight often demonstrate advanced reasoning. Access validation also intersects with incident response and monitoring, because unusual access patterns discovered through monitoring can trigger targeted reviews. For example, repeated failed login attempts or access to rarely used systems may prompt closer examination of account permissions. This integration strengthens defense by connecting detection with governance validation. On the exam, layered approaches that tie monitoring signals to access review actions typically align with effective control strategy. Ultimately, validating access control effectiveness ensures that identity governance remains accurate, enforceable, and aligned with real-world conditions. Reviews confirm ongoing alignment between roles and permissions. Testing verifies that enforcement mechanisms function correctly. Corrective action addresses both symptoms and root causes. Metrics and evidence provide accountability and transparency. When these components operate together, access control becomes a living, continuously improved system rather than a static policy artifact. Understanding this validation cycle equips you to analyze exam scenarios confidently and reinforces the principle that sustainable security depends not just on designing controls, but on proving and refining them over time.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.